Hey guys, this is part 4 of the podcast. Today we're going to talk about the live experience of commentating with a partner and how to commentate with regards to Twitch chat. This is going to be a long one, so let's just jump right in. The next part is we talk about how to prepare to commentate with a partner. So this is about how to actually prepare for the actual sets that you will be watching. So you're preparing for the sets you're going to be commentating and stuff like that. And you want to... There's a couple of things you should do. Is first of all, you should look up who you're commentating with. Like if I am commentating with... if I'm commentating with FTD, yeah. Like I would want to, first of all, like talk to them. Hey, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah.
What do we want to focus on? Do you have anything that you like to do?
Yeah, like do you have any...
What's your signature move?
But also just sort of talking about the play style that you will have during the commentary is a really weird way to put it, but that's how I can put it.
Ask them if they have matches they're looking forward to, if they have things that they want to talk about during the block, right? Like, you know that you're going to be commentating Mal versus Mr. Peck or something like that. Like, obviously I would want Chimps to be able to commentate about that because of, this is a first time kind of match where it's, an oceanic player that Chimps is really close with versus one of the best players in the world, and that's something that obviously he would be able to talk about. That's interesting. He would have a much more interesting and nuanced take about something like that than I would as somebody that's an American, and who cares what I have to say about something like that. This is his homeboy.
It's just generally sort of talking about what specific things they're interested in. And what that sort of also dictates what they're looking for to talk about in a certain set as well. Like I am that kind of person that sort of talks about intricate punishes or any specific things that like, oh, they got this chicken block punish, or they did the push block absolute guard at this proper time, or anything like that. I like to point out things like that. I would communicate that with my co-commentator, and that would sort of mean that like, if there's anything like that they would have seen as well, they let me talk about it as opposed to if they wanted to talk about it.
I like to talk about what's going through players' heads, what players are trying to accomplish,
yeah.
the goals of players specifically, and things that they have to be aware of rather than what's mechanically going on.
Right. So if there's nothing interesting mechanically that sort of happened in the set, I would sort of lay back and let FDD talk about that in the between matches and at the end of a set. Like he could mention like, or because if things went according to plan, player 1 is feeling really comfortable and player 2 is sort of thinking, oh, the strategy I came in to counter player 1's strategy didn't really work, how do I sort of change up anything, or if I was just messing up and I just need to play better or anything like that. Sort of those sort of things you would want to mention, and then you would be better at mentioning that than I would be, so I would just sort of shut up and let you sort of take it.
I would say that the most important thing during pre-commentary preparation isn't necessarily communication with another commentator, because that can sort of be figured out on the fly, but it's good to know these things for sure. You're always going to be better off knowing them than not. But because, like I mentioned, commentary is sort of about establishing a narrative, then you need to know who the players are in the commentary block that you're doing as best to your ability. Especially if it's something important. There's not really a good excuse for not knowing the strong players that have made it as far as like a top 16 or a top 8 especially. You want to know as much as you can about their history, about their strategies, about characters they play, any sort of backup teams that they have available to them. And you want to know why and how players have made it as far as they have in the tournament, I would say. And if you don't know anything about players because you're commentating like pools or something like that, that's also fine, but you at least want to point out that like anything can happen during pool play. It's one of the reasons it's interesting to watch is because you just see crazy stuff sometimes.
And just generally sort of like if you're preparing for like a top 32 or something, you do want to look for like, hey, this is a potential matchup that you are interested in. One of the examples that sort of Ultra David mentioned when he was doing CPT commentary for South America is like, hey, this is there's in the top 8 there's like one Venezuelan player, and that's really somebody to look for. And you would want to mention similar players like that in the Skullgirls tournament, like, hey, this is one player from Mexico, and this is their first tournament, but they're doing really well. they've been doing really well. They've been tearing through losers. They beat X, Y, and Z, who are really good players.
Yeah, but soon in their way will be Sonic Fox if things go according to the way that this bracket looks.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Like, this is sort of like, you talk about how to set up the actual commentary block, but this is the research you would want to be doing beforehand.
Yeah, you don't want to be caught off guard with something like that, and you definitely don't want to be caught off guard. You ought to know if somebody's like playing a new team or something like that. That's like a good example. Is that
Yeah.
DeKillsage has been playing Eliza, and I would be surprised if he doesn't bring his Eliza out here or something like that. You don't want to just have him come up there in like top 16. The top 16 is maybe where this matters the most, because by that time you should know everybody in the tournament.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, if it's top 16 and somebody's bringing out a team that they've been playing all tournament, and you say that you've never seen that team before, that's a blow up.
Yeah.
You should have been watching top 32 at the least.
Yeah. It's like, hey, Chimps has been playing Philia Point, or like Philia Parasol Big Band. Wait, this is a Robo Philia? Like, what's going on over here? It's like, bros. I've been playing this for 5 months. So, like, stuff like that. Just preparing for the block in of itself, sort of keeping tabs on the players. And also, I think another thing that we haven't written in my notes or anything, but I think another thing to sort of talk about, and especially in the context of commentaries with duos, is using physical tells to, like, sort of mention when you should speak or when you shouldn't speak. Like, one of the things that I've sort of realized doing commentary in duos is in person, is that, like, because when they're commentating, like, the match is going on, you're free to use your hands and, like, look at the other player and sort of mention things, or like, one thing that I like using a lot is using, like, a notepad, like a physical pen and paper, to sort of write things down and to sort of talk about, like, hey, I want to get some water or something, can you just carry for me a little bit while I drink, or anything like that. I mean, ideally you don't want to be like, oh my god, it's in the middle of a big, upset.
You can grab your co-commentator's arm. You can squeeze their arm. Tasty Steve classic.
Yeah, but just stuff like that. I think being able to physically gesture to your co-commentator can be a really big thing. Like, another thing that a lot of people do, like the professional commentators do, is that they'll just, like, tap the desk when they want to signal they want to stop talking. Like, you can sort of talk about that in your inflection, like we have done so far as well, if you sort of go back and look at it. But it's really easy to sort of see that, like, oh, I tapped the desk, that means I'll shut up in a little bit and you can keep going now, or something like that.
Yeah, I think the better your people skills are, the more inclined you'll be to just pick up on cues like that naturally. But if you have trouble picking up on cues like that, and I think there's no shortage of people that have trouble on picking up on social cues in the fighting game community and the video game community as a whole, then it's maybe worth talking about with a co-commentator before you get into it. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Just make sure that you know what's going on, and as long as everybody knows what's going on, then we won't all look like a bunch of idiots, and that's all we want to avoid.
That's the plan. I can't think of many of the things to talk about as commentators to do. I get, like, another thing, you would want to bring your research in as a accessible way to sort of thing. Another thing one thing I personally don't like doing is looking at Twitch chat, especially if it's an important commentary set. Like, if it's like if it was like pools or something, then I'm inclined to look at it. Especially if, like, I'm in pools and I kind of don't know a certain player or something, then I'm like,
I would say that looking at Twitch chat for pools is almost necessary, because there are people that may or may not know random players, and that'll enhance your ability to actually commentate. I do my best to look at Twitch chat at all points in time in commentary, but I do my best to ignore them if they're not saying something really critical. But as far as instant feedback goes, Twitch chat is helpful for some of that. Obviously not appropriate to have like a full conversation with them sometimes, but
yeah. What would be some things you would want to look at Twitch chat for?
the most obvious thing I would say is just social feedback. If they don't like a certain tick of yours or something, then maybe you can stop doing that. If they are pointing out something that you have missed, then you can go over that in post-match. I don't think you can immediately correct yourself, maybe, but the Twitch chat is maybe not a good captain, but that doesn't mean they're not a decent crew.
Ideally, you don't mess up anything, but if you do mess up anything, like, Twitch chat can be useful to sort of help with that. Like, that's probably one of the best ways to sort of use it. You don't want to be using it to sort of feed the trolls. Like, you don't want to be doing that. Like, that's a bad idea.
There's also maybe judging Twitch chat for like what level of analysis you need to be on. Like Skullgirls is maybe a really good example of this because there's definitely a very dedicated group of Skullgirls watchers in Twitch that I don't know anything about. People that are savvy about the Skullgirls community, it's pretty tight knit. You can tell, if you've got, Tawny and me and Wing in your chat, that you should be on a different level of analysis than if you've got like a bunch of people that say, "Oh, I've only seen the mobile version."
Yeah. The game is quite different.
Yeah, mobile players show up at all sorts of events, and they're like, "Oh, I thought this was Skullgirls Mobile." Go easy on them for a while.
I guess this was more generally about how to work with commentary outside of the commentary part. Like how to interact with Twitch chat, how to interact with your co-commentator and stuff like that.
As far
Anything
as
else?
interacting with Twitch chat goes, treating them like a third commentator in some instances is probably your best bet. Because in some ways they are. I mean, as a viewer, right, you interact with the commentators through Twitch chat, but you also interact with other members of the chat in observing the game.
The main thing to sort of look for is that you don't want to make it you want to focus on the match as the main thing. Like, if you're looking at Twitch chat more than you're looking at the match, you're losing sight of what's important. And especially, like, if I'm commentating something really important, like a top 8 or something, or a top 3, I kind of don't want to be looking at Twitch chat, because generally I'm pretty confident in the commentary style that I have. And if there's anything that I feel like I should improve on, I will, or like I should change, I will expect my co-commentator to tell me that, as opposed to Twitch chat.
I don't think that's an unreasonable thing, but I would say that I would never want to accost somebody on air about something like that, and Twitch chat absolutely will. And they can. It's just something miraculous about Twitch chat is that they'll tell you whenever they fucking feel like it.
Yeah.
You can look at Twitch chat for instant feedback, and you can do course correction much quicker by looking at Twitch chat than you might be able to expecting your co-commentator to blow you up for something really stupid.
Oh yeah, that's another thing I sort of realized I entirely forgot about, is how to talk with your co-commentator. I think a couple of things you should be like looking for is that, like, giving your co-commentator enough time to speak, but also at the same time, like, if they're speaking for too long, don't feel like you just need to take their pressure. You should just reversal sometimes. Just mesh something out. If they're talking for like 30-40 seconds at a time, just come in with an EXDP.
Breathe, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both commentators should sort of recognize when to lay off and when to sort of hammer on. But like if your co-commentator isn't letting off, you should let them know that by just sort of putting it out there. Like, oh, that was a really sick DP or something like that. I don't know.
I would say that the thing to really look for is if your partner is in the process of making a point, if it looks like they're on course to make the point, let them keep going. And if they can't get to the point that you think they're trying to make, or you can't see where they're going at all, it's probably a safe play to get in with the assist.
Basically, you want to sort of help correct the course of the commentary and keep it relevant to the match, because you don't want to be trailing off about something that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, or you don't want to ramble on with specific features of the match too much. Yeah. Even though it's easy to get caught up in something, something can happen in the match that you get hooked on, and sometimes it's worth talking about it for a while. Sometimes it's worth, just skipping some of the things that might also be important to talk about a really impressive mix-up or something like that. But sometimes you need to recognize that your partner is just really impressed by something that happened in the match, and then there's more of the match to be impressed by.
Yeah, and I think part of that also relates to whether it's like a key aspect of the match or not. If something happened that isn't relevant to each other's game plan, like if some weird cross-up happened, you can't be talking about that for 5 seconds. You kind of you go, what the hell just happened, and you just move on like immediately. It depends on how relevant it is to their game plans.
Yeah.
I think, like how much more important an event is, and that's part of like when you should let your co-commentator speak. And also, like, it ties back into the concept of dead air and what a big deal is and what isn't. But yeah, I think we've sort of dreamed this part. Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
I don't think so. I think that admitting when you don't know when things happen is fine. I don't know how you feel about that. Like some people want to feel like they're always on top of commentary.
Like it's fine to admit mistakes. I think it's weirder if you don't. Like if I got caught in a moment and just go on like nothing happened, that's even weirder than sort of just admitting it and moving on from it. You know, I think that way at least.
Yeah, I think that's about it.
Okay, so we can move on to the
Yeah.
final topic of this individualized podcast, which is, oh boy, that sure was a long podcast. The next one should be the last part, and that will be concerning how to practice commentary and how to get better at it, especially in times like these. Hopefully this should be useful, and that'll be the end of the podcast series. Thanks everybody for watching. See you guys in the next one.